achieved.
One of the big questions when it comes to mixed martial arts, as we just saw in the Glover Teixeira-Anthony Smith main event, is when should a corner step in on behalf of their fighter and stop the fight. The majority of the tweets I've seen from fighters usually suggest that they are simply too proud on their own to say, no, I don't want to go anymore. I'm not getting off the stool. They don't want to quit. But at the same time, they hope their corner will offer them some, support in the sense that they won't send them back out there when they know they shouldn't. When Anthony Smith said, my teeth are falling out, well, what the fuck? Do you need more than that to realize that, hey, look, this has gone too far. I need to shut things down. And again, I get it. It's a sport of essentially fighting, and anything can happen. Anybody can go out there and get absolutely battered pillar to post and then find that one magic shot and finish a fight. But the likelihood is fairly limited. That's why it's so incredible when it does happen. There's long-term implications of taking a beating like that, and that's, good on Glover for doing what he did. I think there was a point somebody highlighted a moment where it seemed like Glover made some type of apology mid-ground and pound to Smith regarding, I'm sorry for busting you up or something like that. Anthony Smith's response was, as a true warrior, it is what it is, buddy. You're doing your job, I'm doing mine. So hats off to both of them for a hell of a main event. And, but at the same time, I'd like to think corners will recognize the long-term implications of a fighter taking unnecessary damage. But, of course, the counter-argument, as I said, is it's a fight. You know what you're getting into. So, let them go out on their shield, essentially. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC on ESPN 8 Overeem versus Harris event. The names of these cards have been changing a lot, or it seems like, or depending on what source you're looking at. Nonetheless, this event's going on May 16th. From the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida, our third event in 8 days. It'll be headlined by Alistair Overeem taking on Walt Harris. I'll be giving you my 5 main card predictions on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks will be available, as per usual, at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, as I said, I had Anthony Smith. He started off very strong, but Glover rallied, as he so often does, and secured the victory, making it, let's just look, 3 consecutive main event losses, and 4 of my last 5. Not exactly stellar. Now, my bet packs have been doing well. My HBC has returned profit now on 5 straight events. The last 3 hasn't been huge profit, but still enough. My CBC picked up a pretty nice profit, return at the UFC Fight Night 171 event, but, it's been a little bit hit or miss. For both nights, had Tony Ferguson and Anthony Smith come through in the main event, we would have cashed in huge. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's the way it goes. Nonetheless, $15 for my bet pack for Saturday's card, or you can subscribe and save yourself about probably $10 for the next 3 events. If you subscribe, you get a little bit of a discount. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter account is KO_predictions. And this has been a whirlwind. A lot of fights go from 0 to 60. A lot of fights in a very short period of time after a lot of no fights in a very long period of time. I'm recording this literally right after the Glover Smith main event concluded. And it's a little bit late here, but we're going to get through it because, heck, we got a lot of fights still left to break down to get you the action you need. On that note, let's get to our first fight of the evening. The opening fight of the main card transpires in the UFC's featherweight division, featuring a pair of traditional bantamweights, as Song Yadong coming in with a record of 15-4-1, or Yadong Song, depending on what site you're reading from, taking on Marlon Cheeto Vera, with a record of 15 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. Currently, the odds posted at Bet365 have Song at a minus 188 favorite, while the return on Vera is plus 162. Now, Yadong coming off a draw against Cody Stamann. It was an odd fight. He lost a point in that matchup, which I thought almost certainly condemned him to a defeat, because I had Song in that matchup. It was a weird fight. I thought he lost outright, so I was a little shocked when he received the draw. He had won 7 consecutive fights, including the first 4 in his UFC tenure. For Marlon Vera, he comes in having won 5 consecutive. He stopped all of his opponents during that time, and he's won 8 of his last 10 with losses to a pair of big power punchers in Douglas D'Andrade and John Lineker. Physically, both guys 5'8". Vera will have a 3-inch reach advantage, and Yadong is the younger man by 5 years. As I said, they traditionally fight at bantamweight, but this bout is scheduled, at least from what I'm seeing, to go down at featherweight. Now, Yadong's a physical powerhouse. He hits hard, stays tight, offers some decent volume, and he absolutely can wrestle. For Vera, he's got a lot of good things going for him as well. Very good grappler, solid kicking game, strong clinch position. He's got some good knees. He will throw a lot of wild techniques, a lot of high-risk maneuvers because he's not afraid to work off his back because he's very good from that position. Those long legs are very dangerous to deal with on the ground. So when you look at the Stamen fight, he represented a very significant step up for Song, and it wasn't a great fight. He got himself put in some bad positions. He wasn't overly active with his hands at times, and it just didn't, transpire as well as he has in the past, as well as his performances have played out in the past. For Vera, he has traditionally got off to slow starts in a number of fights. He lets his opponents get ahead, and he rallies, and when his opponents fade, as we often see with the guys we just saw in the main event, that's great to have. Will that eventually catch up to you? Now, Vera tends to give up position a lot. He's very good off his back, but again, you really don't want Song on top of you, who's a fairly strong top position player. He can work from that position. He trains with a team alpha male. He's just, generally speaking, he's capable on the mat. That being said, I wasn't overly impressed with how he handled the grappling aspects of Cody Stamen. And with Vera being so tricky and good with his transitions, if you are not sharp, if you're too passive from the position on the ground and you wind up giving up some bad spots, you can find yourself in a fight-ending sequence and be on the wrong end of this matchup with Vera. I like Vera's kicking game at range. I think it's going to give Song some issues. And once on the mat, again, Vera's so crafty, it's going to be very difficult for Yadong to control the position of Vera and even get off a lot of offense with how active Cheeto is off his back. I do like a fighter who's able to come out and finish and be dangerous in the final frame, even when he's behind 0-2, even though that's not preferable. I really do not want to see Vera come down, come into that round 0-2. I like how Vera's come along. I really like where he's finding himself right now. And again, I wasn't feeling Yadong in that last matchup, and I'm going to go with a bit of an upset here. So my prediction is Marlon Cheeto Vera to defeat Yadong Song by submission. I think he catches him. Our second matchup of the card takes place in the UFC's middleweight division as ya boy 13-4 Eryk Anders takes on the 21-4 Krzysztof Jotko of Poland. Jotko currently the favorite at -150. Anders a slight underdog at +125. Now, Anders has won back-to-back fights. He had that very close split decision with Gerald Meerschaert. He had lost 3 in a row in 4 of his last 5 prior to this little rebirth. For Jotko, he has also won back-to-back fights, a split decision versus Barrio. He had lost 3 in a row as well. Both guys 6'1", 2-inch reach advantage for the Polish fighter. He is also the younger fighter by 2 years. Now, you could probably categorize both these individuals as reclamation projects. They started strong, got a little notoriety, had a bit of a period of faltering. Anders actually answered that by going to light heavyweight, and now they're both having success again, or at least some success, and one of them will get a win here and get an opportunity to maybe just get a little push in the right direction. Jotko's a decision machine when you look at his record. 14-1 on the scorecard, 7-1 in the UFC. The lone loss, a split decision loss against David Branch. He grinds guys into the clinch, scores takedowns. His striking is improved. It's right there. Now, he did get knocked out by Uriah Hall after a very strong start. He won the first round, got absolutely dummied, as Hall has a tendency to do. But he also got knocked out by Brad Tavares. And 3 of his 4 losses have come by finish, the other one by submission. So you have to wonder maybe a little bit about his durability or his ability to deal with some tough spots. Certainly raises a bit of a question mark. Now, you look at Anders, he's got 3 UFC wins by knockout, but all 3 of those guys are prone to getting finished via strikes. They have a combined total of 13 losses by KO, which accounts for those 3 fighters' combined career losses. 72% of their losses have come by knockout. So that gives you an idea of where they're at. Now, that being said, Jotko was also knocked out by Brad Tavares, who, not known for his punching power, has 2 UFC knockouts in 18 UFC fights. So it's, pitter-patter, back and forth. For Anders, he's a good athlete overall. Not from a combat background, really hasn't developed an elite skill, which can be an issue as you get a step up in your level of competition. His volume's kind of middle of the road. He has given up more strikes in 6 of his last 7 fights, including 2 victories. Not a huge takedown threat. He landed some against Thiago Santos and Lyoto Machida, both in main events, but lost both those fights over 5 rounds. Santos stopped him. I can't remember if it was the late 4th or 5th, but it was still a longer fight. Jotko's volume isn't great either. He's been a little more consistent than Anders with his takedowns, but ultimately what Krzysztof wants to do is he wants to strike and move and then push forward, put you in the clinch, hold you on the cage. He's a very frustrating fighter because he can really just slow you down. And, Anders has good takedown defense at 76%. He should be able to keep this fight standing as far as I can see. The other thing to keep in note here is we're looking at a southpaw versus southpaw match. And looking back at the guys Jotko has faced, I don't think he's had a lot of experience facing southpaws at this level. Well, for Anders, he's fought Mearshart, Roundtree, Santos, Machida, all those guys ranking as southpaws. And that certainly gives him a little bit of a experience edge in this type of fight, where fighting that southpaw where you're traditionally not used to facing a mirror, basically the mirror image of yourself, it can be difficult, especially the first time. For Anders, he seems better when he can bully his opponents. When he's got a little bit of a power edge, he can throw bombs and push forward, and he's not afraid of getting cracked. And I think that's something he does have going for him here. I think this is going to be a close fight. I think the volume is going to be comparable. I think Anders, he can do enough with the power to hurt Jotko. He possibly might be able to stop him. I think the clinch takedown game will either be close or just nullified in a non-factor here. I just wasn't overly impressed with Jotko against Barrio. He nearly got that fight. He nearly won that matchup. I thought he really didn't. He had edges that weren't there. He didn't capitalize like he should have. And I think Anders can turn this into a brawl, which favors him a little bit. I like his power. I like his athleticism. And my prediction is Eryk Anders to defeat Krzysztof Jotko by decision. At the midway mark of the main card, we're in the UFC's featherweight division as longtime lightweight contender Edson Jr Barbosa makes his divisional debut. He carries a record of 20 wins and 8 losses. Welcoming him to 145 pounds will be the 13-2 Dan Ige. Ige is currently the underdog at plus 110. Barbosa coming back at minus 138. Now, Ige, he's making his move. This is his run. This is his opportunity. 5 straight victories after his debut loss to Julio Arce. He's beat some scrappy opponents. Had that split decision win against Mirsad Bektic. I had him in that fight. Thought he did a good job. He had a solid decision victory over Kevin Aguilar. I picked Aguilar, unfortunately. So, Ige's making his push. And adding Barboza to the pile would be very impressive. For Barboza, he had that split decision loss against Paul Felder that many people, including myself, thought Barboza won. He got knocked out by Justin Gaethje before that. His only victory in his last 5 fights came against Dan Hooker. But when you look at the other guys he's fought, in addition to Felder and Gaethje, Kevin Lee and Nurmagomedov, so the best of the best, really. As I said, Barboza moving down to flyweight. Oh my goodness. Moving down to featherweight. Looked tight at 155, so it's not like physically he had weight to lose. But hey, if he thinks he can do it, let's see. He'll be 4 inches taller than Ige. He'll have a 4-inch reach advantage. Ige is the younger man by 5 years. Now, how's the cut go for Barboza? What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? As I said, I'm not sure he physically looked like he had the room to cut, but we'll see. There's not a lot of lightweights moving to featherweight right now. We saw kind of an influx of that when the division first showed up. Some of these guys who had been unable to crack the contendership at lightweight moving down. We're not seeing that as much, and we're seeing some guys who go down and come right back up shortly thereafter. Ige, he's coming off a back-and-forth battle with Bektic. It was close. Both had their moments, but Barboza's a drastically different fighter, so it's really difficult to worry about that fight too much. When you go back to his fight with Aguilar, who's more of a striking-based fighter, Ige looked good, landed some solid counter strikes, hurt him, utilized his grappling by getting on top after a knockdown. That was, an overall strong performance. He likes to box. He will kick periodically. But he wants to be in close, step into the pocket and throw, keep himself in a range where he can clinch and score takedowns if needed. He had a couple nice level changes against Aguilar, good scrambler as well, and get himself out of some bad spots if he's put in them. That being said, can he trade with Edson Barboza? And if not, can he take him down? I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a equation I really think he wants to test out here. Barboza has a sizable length advantage, and if the cut goes well, his kicks are going to be very impactful at 145. That's something we need to be very mindful of. His kicks are going to be, that much more impactful against smaller men. In addition to that, another advantage is that he should be able to absorb the punishment a little bit better facing guys who are a little bit smaller. And he shouldn't be able to get out-wrestled, out-muscled by these 145ers if he's able to get the cut down without really depleting himself too much. The other thing is, on the negative side, the speed factor. Barboza is fairly quick at 155. Does he lose some of that at 145? Traditionally, they do. Barboza's takedown defense is 80%. He's only been taken down by the best of the best. Lee, Habib, that's really it in recent fights. So, I'm not sure Ige can take him down unless he hurts him. Again, if he's too drained from the cut, anything can happen. But, and I don't see Ige as the power punching type. The guys like Gaethje who KO'd him, or Lee who just ground him, had him into oblivion, or even Jamie Varner back in the day who knocked him silly, throwing, knocking down with a punch. I don't see Ige being that type of guy who can get in and blast him. He doesn't have the big numbers that would suggest he's capable of that. The best way to beat Barboza is to fight him with pressure and volume. Again, we saw Ferguson do that. We saw Lee do that. We saw Habib do that. We saw MJ do that as well. But he's pretty good in that spot, and he's shown improvements. And unless you're the best of the best with your wrestling or your volume striking, if you're going to engage Edson Barboza in that, you could be in for a world of hurt. Ige's a good fighter, but this is a big step up for him. Again, if Barboza struggles with the cut, as I keep saying, the door swings wide open. But Ige's damn tough, but I just see Barboza piecing him up at range with kicks to the legs and body. He'll do damage in the clinch. He might get the finish here, but I see one of those fights where just Barboza does a lot and wears on him and pounds on him and just scores more frequently. And my prediction is Edson Barboza to defeat Dan Ige by decision. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's women's strawweight division as former title challenger, the 17-4 Claudia Gadelha takes on the former Invicta champion, the 12-7 Angela Hill. Angela Hill currently the underdog at plus 162. The Brazilian minus 188 as the favorite. Now, Gadelha beat Randa Marcos in her last fight. It wasn't a great performance. She was switching camps, which she kind of attributed to some of her issues, but she has won 4 of her last 6. And you look at some of the girls she's beat, they're decent. Marcos, Esparza, Shell of herself, and Karolina Kovacevic, and Courtney Casey, who's fighting on the undercard as well. Her losses to Nina Ansaroff and Jessica Andrade. Now, Hill, she's absolutely rolling. She has wins over Luke Bume, Seifers, and Carnelosi. She went 3-5 prior to that, and before that she had her first UFC run ended, and she went on to win the Invicta title, and a little bit of a good run there. Her recent losses to Randa Marcos, Courtney Casey, Nina Ansaroff, and Jessica Andrade. So she's fighting good competition. When she's getting beat by good competition. So, this is her opportunity again against good competition to make her mark. Physically, Claudia 1 inch taller. He'll have a 1 inch reach advantage. And Gadelha is the younger girl by 3 years. Now, lots of common opponents to look at with mixed results. I don't put too much stock into that sometimes, especially the fact these are two vastly different fighters, so opponents will fight them much differently. This is like that new age grappler versus striker matchup. Both girls can do things in the other area. They can operate in the other area, but each one clearly wants to perform in a particular spot. Each one of these girls clearly wants to perform and have this fight carry out in one realm or the other. Now, Hill has put together her best runs since her time in Invicta, but she has fought primarily strikers. During her last 3 fights, she's fought girls who are going to oblige her in keeping it standing, aren't a massive takedown threat, and in fact, Hill could oblige them and take them down and have some edge there. Now, it could be argued that Gadelha's recent wins against girls like Marcos and Esparza have come over grapplers with limited interest in staying standing, or at least a willingness to go to the ground where Claudia can overpower them. I guess that wasn't the case in the Marcos fight, but certainly was against Carla Esparza, which was a close matchup. So when it comes right down to it, Claudia beats Hill with a steady diet of takedowns, top control, and a possible submission. Hill beats Gadelha with striking volume, pace, and movement, possibly finishing her off at some point, through exhaustion or just wear and tear from the damage. Gadelha, she outworked Marcos on the feet, landed 0 takedowns, at least put more volume up. Prior to that fight, she had taken on 8 of her 9 UFC opponents, and of those 8, 7 of them were 8 7 of those 8 had multiple takedowns given up against the Brazilian. When you look at Angela Hill's record, when she gives up at least one takedown, she is 3-6. She beat Luke Mume, who scored 1 takedown, and she beat Ashley Yoder and Emily Kagan prior to that, who each took her down. But that's it. She has lost 66% of her fights when she gives up at least 1 takedown. She's also 4-1 when she gives up 0 takedowns. Her only loss, her opponent had to put up 143 significant strikes. So that tells you how important it is for her to stay vertical. Again, we're not telling you anything you really didn't know already, but the numbers reinforce this trend. Hill has eclipsed the 90-plus strike total on 6 occasions. Gadelha just once, and it came with the strength of 4 takedowns. So again, Hill, if she can keep this fight standing, keep that movement going, that is going to be massive for her. Her ability to do damage is noteworthy, especially if Claudia fades. But Hill starting to show she can finish. I like that, but again, it's against a little bit slightly lower level competition. I don't think she's going to be able to move around the cage as much, and she's going to struggle to shake Claudia off when she gets in close. Look for Claudia to close the gap and take her down, control her on the mat, and this should slow Hill's volume down and willingness to engage. It wasn't that long ago that Hill got overwhelmed by Randa Marcos on the mat and looked completely devoid of defensive work. And that's the last time she faced a real capable grappler who was a threat. I think Claudia is a monster in this position. She certainly can and should exploit that. She knows this is a big fight for her. So my prediction is Claudia Gadelha to defeat Angela Hill by submission. And in the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's heavyweight division as the former title challenger, 45-18-0 Alistair Overeem, who's held titles in various organizations around the world, takes on the 13-7 Walt Harris. Currently, Overeem comes in as the slight plus 130 underdog. The turnaround on Walt Harris, minus 160. Now, Overeem is coming off that devastating loss to Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He did almost everything right. He was ahead, 4 seconds left, got obliterated. That won me a bunch of money, which was shocking. Prior to that, he had beat Alexei Oleinik and Sergey Pavlovich to get himself the ship righted. For Harris, he's won back-to-back fights versus Oleinik and Spivak. He beat Arlovsky, which was turned into no contest. He beat Daniel Spitz. He was beating Mark Godbeer before a DQ. He's had an interesting run overall. Physically, Harris 1 inch taller. Overeem he'll have a 3-inch reach advantage. Overeem's the heavier man, 10, 15 pounds heavier most likely, and he's 3 years older than Harris, who's getting up there in age. He's not young by any stretch of the imagination. Now, the Harris stepdaughter, abduction and death, we have to take into account. It's unfortunate, and my heart goes out to the individual. But is it motivate? Is it a motivating factor? Is it a distraction? He seems to have handled it as well as you possibly could, at least in the public, in the media. It's hard to judge overall where his head's at. I don't know. I'm surprised he's fighting, but at the same time, this might be the best thing for him. So again, it's worth pointing out, but at the same time, we really can't get inside this individual's head. I feel, it could impact him, but hey, who knows? Harris has finished his last 2 opponents to combine 62 seconds. So he's not really known for having these long, drawn-out, successful performances. 5 of his last 7 wins have come in round 1, the other 2 in round 2. He has improved his performances in longer fights. He, regardless of the no contest, he did beat Andrei Arlovsky over 3 rounds. A lot of people thought Andrei won that fight, and I kind of did too. He had that split decision versus Shamil Abdurrahimov in a longer fight. His win over Arlovsky, again, he only landed 24 significant strikes to Arlovsky's 44. It wasn't a great performance, which brings in some concerns, because when you look at Overeem, very similar to Andrei, he's becoming a smarter fighter, a more defensive fighter, less open to taking damage. He's also less offensive at times, but he's just fighting smarter. And, he limited Rozenstruik until round 4. He got hit a lot in rounds 4 and 5, but he was doing a good job of doing just enough to win those rounds and being defensively, difficult and offensively active enough. And if Harris gets lulled into that scenario and can't find a way through, Overeem could drag him out, extend him, and find success. And you get your hearts broken if Overeem gets knocked out in the final minute or 2 if you're back in Alistair. Overeem has power. His recent knockouts have come, against lesser strikers. He took Pavlovich down from ground and pound, which was impressive. He weathered the storm against Oleinik and got him out of there as well. Throws a lot of big single punches, good counter striker. He's pretty quick. Look for him to land those hard knees along the cage if he gets you in that clinch position. You can really wear on people and ragdoll them. As we saw in the Pavlovich fight, if he gets on top, he can put some ground and pound on you and get you out of there. The one thing I don't like about Alistair is he tends to cover up. He doesn't really deal with these barrages well. Olynyk was just blasting him and going at him, very similar to what he did against Fabricio Verdum, and ultimately Overeem, was able to weather the storm and take him up, but he has a tendency to cover up and hope the pressure goes away, and then he, comes back out, okay, let's go, but, it's not necessarily, you're not always going to come out of those barrages less than, maybe you'll come out worse for the wear. Harris is far removed from his only 2 knockout losses, so he's pretty durable. And he's pretty quick. He's pretty not hard to hit, but we haven't really seen him take a lot of big shots. But again, his defensive game has improved. I would say overall he's probably more durable than Alistair Overeem. His striking is pretty solid. He's got good speed and footwork. He's improved vastly there. That should allow him to get in against Overeem's defense, especially if Overeem plays that shell game. Overeem's been knocked out 14 times in mixed martial arts. That's not including kickboxing. 4 times in his career, he has suffered back-to-back knockouts where he gets knocked out once, and then his next fight, he gets knocked out again. So that's what we're looking at. Could we see a 5th time here? Harris fits the profile of the type of fighter that usually stops him. Power and size plus speed to match and overwhelm AO at some point. Overeem could opt to look for a takedown, ground and pound similar to the Pavlovich fight, could outwork him, be more diverse in a longer fight. I think that's his best path to victory. But I just think he needs to avoid those big shots and hope for a slowdown, and that's the long game. I don't think he's going to be able to get there. Harris, look for him to push forward, land those big shots early, throw some nice combinations with just good hand speed. Overeem's going to shell up, and I think Harris is going to be able to punch around that guard and piece him up along the cage, and Alistair's not going to be able to withstand those big shots. And my prediction is Walt Harris to defeat Alistair Overeem by knockout and get that big signature win that the guy needs to really put his name on the map. So those are my 5 main card predictions for the upcoming UFC on ESPN event. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Please check them out. They'll be posted tomorrow's Thursday, actually technically today's Thursday as when I'm recording this, but I will get after them as soon as I possibly can. It's a busy week. Between Thursday and Friday, the prelims and the bet pack will be posted. Tune in on Saturday for the event. You can shoot me a message on Twitter, Facebook if you need to. If you have any questions, or email me, I'm usually always available. Again, thank you for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. It's a lot of fights in a short period of time. We were 2 incorrectly predicted main events away from having a dynamic week. Let's see if we can finish strong and still have a pretty nice profit when this week's all said and done. Thanks, guys. Take care.